So, Mr. David Congreave, I would
Hello.
like to hear, hello, I would like to hear all about the freelance freedom method, if you would tell me what it is, please, and tell me why I should even care about it.
Oh, okay. So the short version is that it is a method that helps freelancers find more business. And just to be clear, this isn't about taking the existing methods that you use. So maybe you use social media marketing and networking and the like. It's not about making those methods better. It's entirely new methods of finding new business that you can add to your existing methods. And finding new clients is what it's all about for a freelancer. It's the biggest challenge that all freelancers face. So I think the reason you should care, Emma, as a freelancer yourself, is that our business lives and dies by the pipeline of leads and prospects that we get. It's so easy to get into that little rut where you get really busy for a time and then you don't have the time to do the new business generation. And then when things drop off, it gets quiet and you have that lull, and then you start burning through all your cash reserves, which is kind of scary. And it's a very stressful way of running a business. And the idea is that the freelance freedom method just kind of smooths all that out. It gives you a method that you can use week in, week out, whether you're busy or not. It only takes around about an hour a week, but it keeps that flow of leads and prospects coming in. And that's what makes it work.
That sounds absolutely brilliant. And you're so right. As a freelancer, there's some real big key challenges that you've highlighted there. Time, getting a constant flow of pipeline. And that's something that I think so many people neglect, don't they? Particularly if, you're kind of, you're in the feast mode. You forget that famine can happen if you don't do all the right things up front and continuously and consistently. To make sure that you, like you say, smooth those things out. So we're talking about freelancers here, but who if we were going to define specifically who this freelance freedom method is for, what does that look like?
I would say is anybody who is either new to freelancing, so maybe you've only started in the last few months, or maybe you're about to start or thinking of starting. For you, that's going to be gold because it's going to help you get off the ground. If you've been freelancing for a couple of years, you're probably already at that stage where you had that initial bump that you always get when you start a new business, and now it's trailing off and you're wondering how you keep that supply going. Because sometimes when you're a new freelancer, you're relying on existing contacts, and once you've mined all those, it's where do you go from there. If you've been freelancing for a long time, maybe 5 to 10 years, unless you've got it all figured out and you're constantly fully booked, then this is going to help you because it's going to help you get more business. Because I've been doing this for 17 years, and up until about 2 years ago, my business was always like this, up and down, up and down. And to be honest, it's always going to be a little bit like that. There's no way of keeping yourself fully booked all the time, I don't think, unless you're in a very non-competitive space. I'm a copywriter, which is very competitive. And if you're in any of the sort of creative side of things, so if you do social media marketing consultant, videography, graphic design, web design, any of those, you've got a lot of competition, so it's a lot harder. But whatever freelance mode you're in, these methods work. They work as far as I'm aware for everybody. The only thing I would say is that you need to be able to work with people on a national basis. So if you only supply local businesses, probably not going to be as effective. There are still some elements of it that will work, but it'll work much better if you're able to deliver your service on a national basis or even international. So this is going to help you find leads in other parts of the world as well. I've worked with clients in America, in Australia, in the Middle East. It works universally as far as I can see so far.
That's brilliant. So you said, you've sort of had 17 years experience of this kind of uncertainty, really, of being, operating as an entrepreneur and a freelancer in your space. And I think, whatever space you're in, if you're freelancing, we can probably empathize with that, right? So is it your experiences that have kind of created this idea? Like where, what is it that gave you that nudge to say, well, actually there's a method here, and maybe this is something other people need to learn as well, and maybe I'm the person to do that.
Yeah, so I've had this a few times where I've either had one really good client that's been keeping me employed as a freelancer more or less full time, or I've had 2 or 3 really good clients. I mean, either that one big client has just dropped off, or for some reason just randomly all of the clients just drop off for completely different reasons. And it doesn't matter how many times it happens, it's always a little bit terrifying. And the most recent time it happened was, I think, so this would be 2018. I'd been working with a new client, and this was a client who was paying me for 5 days a week at my top rate. So I was banking up some really good reserves in the business. And it got so well, after about 18 months, I thought, you know what, I need to start spending some of this. So we took the family to Disney World. We decided to buy a house for the first time. Being in your 40s and buying a house for the first time is probably not the best idea, but yeah, we have the money for the deposit. Let's do it. We're a bit tired of renting. Whilst I was in America, about a week in, I started getting messages through that people in the marketing department were being made redundant, and about 5 people were made redundant whilst I was in America. When I got home after about 2 days, I got a message from the HR department, and it turned out they were dissolving the whole marketing department. They were going a different route, and that was it. So that was my one client with a full-time income, just gone. And then, just to add insult to injury, at the same time, my wife, who was getting PIP payments, they cancelled all of that as well. It's a whole other story. So we just spent a massive amount of money on this holiday. We just put down the deposit on a house. So this mortgage was in the middle of going through. And suddenly I was going from really, really good income to no income. It took me about 3 months to find another really good contract. That was 3 months was a stressful 3 months. Now, fortunately, because we had the reserves, it was okay. We managed to survive. I started to look back on that 3 months and think, I wish I'd known that it was all going to work out, because then I would have just had that 3 months as a holiday and just put my feet up and just relaxed. But I didn't. It was a stressful 3 months. And if you've been in the situation, you know what it's like. You do social media messages, you send out some emails, and then you're refreshing your emails like every 20 minutes has anybody replied. And you've no idea if anyone's going to get back to you or if your messages are getting through to anyone. It's just a horrible position to be in. So now we go back to 2021, and I decided I was kind of had enough of this boom or bust. I wanted to find some more proactive methods. And this is the key word I'm going to keep coming back to. I wanted a method of finding business that let me take control, that let me go after opportunities, find opportunities, go after them. Instead of just sort of putting myself out there and waiting for people to come to me, I'm going to go to them. So I hired a virtual assistant. It was a big chunk of money, but I figured it would pay for itself overall. Excuse me, my phone. I think it would pay
coming in right now, hopefully.
Yeah, there you go. No, nothing that exciting. Completely forgot what I was saying now.
Virtual assistant, big chunk of money.
Virtual assistant, big chunk of money, yeah. And it took about 3 months to get first client in, but that paid for everything that I paid the virtual assistant so far. Then somebody introduced me to another version of that new business method, and that started working really well. And when I started refining that method, I started figuring out how I could get a better conversion rate on it, how I could get more leads, how I could turn more of those leads into prospects, and how I could turn more of those prospects into actual customers, and also how to turn more of those customers into retained clients. This is another really huge thing for freelancers. If you can get clients on retainer, so you're getting monthly income month in, month out, that is absolute gold, because that gives you consistency. It reduces the amount of time you have to spend onboarding new clients, which takes a lot of time on its own. And it removes so much of that anxiety. So that was kind of the process I went through. And it was working so well, we decided, you know what, we should be offering this method to other people. So I partnered up with my virtual assistant, and we started looking for clients to do this method for them as a done-for-you service. And that was actually really successful, in that people that took on the program, most of them did actually find business. The trouble was, what they tended to do is once they got that business, they said, right, I'm too busy now, so we're going to move on. This melted my brain, because the whole point is that you're creating a pipeline and trying to stop those peaks and troughs. And because it doesn't take a lot of time to do, you can keep doing it whilst you've got business, so that when those projects that you're busy with drop off, you've got other stuff in the pipeline. So this was a frustration. We also found that some people didn't really understand what to do with the leads once they generated them. They didn't know how to turn them into prospects. They didn't know how to use sales to turn them into clients. So we pivoted, and this is where the freelance freedom method came up. We came up with this idea of let's scale it. Let's not just give people the leads. Let's teach them how to use those leads effectively. Let's teach them how to get their attention. Let's teach them how to sell them. Let's teach them how to get retainers. And that's essentially how the idea came together.
I love that. So it's not you know, obviously, you know, people could potentially get you to do it for them, right? But actually more effectively is the teach a man to fish type concept, isn't it? You know, let's teach people how to do this, do the marginal gains, get that consistency, get that flow, get that ease, like, which is a big deal, you know, having that ease and that reducing that effort. And that absolutely, as you said before, letting you take control. Mm-hmm. So on that matter, so obviously I think the practical, and I'm going to, you know, ask you to expand on what people will learn from this specifically later. But from a practical perspective, I think it's fairly obvious that actually what you'll get from this is some rigor, some process, some stability, some control, an actual methodology and parameters, and something measurable and consistent, and you know, all of those fantastic business sense things. What's it actually brought to you emotionally though, and you know, from a kind of lifestyle perspective, and that kind of what we would perhaps call the softer element, but the stuff that actually really keeps us awake at night otherwise? What's it brought for you?
Kind of what I touched on before, in that when you lose clients, there's always a measure of anxiety. I'm a naturally anxious person. So actually, even when I'm fully booked, I'm still anxious because I'm still thinking, because I know from experience, at some point, no matter how great things are going, projects come to an end, clients move on. That's just the reality of it. So every time I get an email or a phone call from them saying, oh, can we have a chat? Straight away I'm thinking, oh no, I'm about to lose another client, even when that isn't the case. That is never going to go for me because I'm too anxious a person to completely lose that. But it's smooth it out.
Yeah, I think lots of people will resonate with that, right?
Yeah,
for sure. Sorry, yeah. It smooths it out.
Yeah, and I think it's the reason why it makes me feel better is because I feel like I'm in control of it. I don't have to sit around and wait for something to happen.
Right.
I can actually go out there and find business.
Okay.
And even if I'm not in a position where the leads I've been working in that pipeline are converting at this point, I know that if I keep doing it, history is telling me that it will come out. This is a little bit of a numbers game. As long as you keep doing it, follow up with a certain number of leads, you're going to get a certain number of prospects. Follow up with a certain number of prospects, you're going to get a certain number of Zoom calls. Follow up with enough of those, and you're going to get offers. Yeah. And that's what it's done for me. It makes me feel like I'm in control of my business, which I hadn't realized how little in 17 years, how much I'd felt I wasn't, that I was just kind of it was all kind of a little bit luck, like maybe I'd survived 17 years on luck. And there's actually other things that I now realize that I was doing that was actually really helping. But this process has helped me to really pinpoint exactly what it is that's working, why some things work and why some things don't. And that's a big part of what we're going to teach.
So you've done a lot of the hard work for people already by reflecting on what it is that's kept you going for 17 years when it's felt like it's almost an accident. I know that feeling, like you just sort of stumble your way through it. You've actually pinpointed the things that have really worked and put them together in this method. So what then, what will people learn if they sign up for this? What specifically are they gonna learn?
Okay, so I've got like a half an hour video on the website, which will go through everything. But the short version is that they will actually get leads delivered to them. So we're actually going to do that part as well. Now, this is only if you're in the creative field. So if you're in anything connected to marketing, so social media marketing, SEO, web design, graphic design, videography, all that kind of thing. If you're not in those categories, we will still teach you how to do that part yourself. It doesn't take massive amounts of time. You just got to be consistent with it. And if you want, we can even teach you how to find a VA to do that part for you. But if you're in the creative sector, we're actually going to do the leads part for you as well. That's going to save you a load of time. Wow. Then we're going to teach you how to approach those leads to get attention. And there's a method that I developed, which is unbelievably effective. most people I see, because a lot of other people are using this method as well, it's not unique to me. A lot of other people I see are doing this completely wrong. And I can tell you why, because I'm a copywriter, so I can tell you what they're doing wrong. But also the style of the approach is just not going to work, because you're just going to get lost in the sea. I'll give you an example of this. I messaged a guy who was specifically looking for a copywriter for a project. And he responded to my message in 10 minutes. 10 minutes after that, we were on a Zoom call. And by the next day, he was ready to accept terms. Now, he said that he posted on LinkedIn about this, about needing a copywriter. And he'd had something like 50 people contact him in about 2 or 3 hours. But it was mine that he responded to. And that wasn't an accident. That was because of the way I wrote the message and the way in which I sent the message. And this has worked again and again and again. This happened quite recently as well with another client. She'd had loads and loads of approaches, but mine was the one she responded to within about 10 minutes instead of a Zoom call. And she actually liked the approach so much, she wrote a LinkedIn post about it.
Wow.
So this is a really, really effective method. And it can work in other situations as well. I'm actually at the moment trialing a new type of business generation method, which is based on this, which I think has really, really great potential. So I'm going to be testing this out for the next couple of months. If it's effective as I hope it's going to be, then I'll be sharing that with our members as well.
That's really exciting. I would really like to hear about that as well. So
I'll tell you about it.
I love it. So why act now? Why would people press the button now?
So we're still in pre-launch. If you're watching this before July 15, 2023. So for the first 30 days, we're offering 50% off the regular price. We're also, during the first month, going to do a one-off webinar, which isn't really connected to a lead generation, but it's all about how to make sure that you're charging the right amount. I've done this as a webinar a couple of times before. It's really, really effective. So whether you're a new freelancer or if you've been doing this for a while, this is a really good, really simple exercise to do to make sure that you're charging enough. Because one of the things I see a lot of freelancers doing, particularly when they first start out, they kind of pick their prices based on a mixture of gut feel, what they think other people might be charging, and also an amount that isn't going to make them feel embarrassed, like no one's going to laugh at them for offering it. And then they get some business in, and they end up with enough business to keep them going for 5 days a week, but then they discover they're still not earning enough. That is an awful situation to be in, because you can't stop doing the work because you've committed to it, and it's not good to let a client down. You can't really go back to ask for more money. That's kind of done. So what you end up doing is taking on more business and working overtime and burning yourself out.
And then if you feel you can't do any of it.
Which exactly, I mean, that's the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
So there's a method I developed that lets you work out exactly what you need to charge, so that your business is sustainable. And that's the key term. It's got to be sustainable. It's not about earning enough just to get you through each month. It's about what's going to allow you to sustain the business long term. My business is sustained for 17 years. Had those ups and flows, but I've never gone out of business because I've always made sure I've kept my price at a sustainable level. And that's really, really important. So that's one of the bonus webinars we're going to do if you sign up before July 15th.
So that, to me, sounds like some good, really good, sensible reverse engineering, rather than kind of just doing a stab in the dark thing, like you say, that people do, you know,
Yeah.
and then realize too late it's not working for them. Brilliant. So I want to know, there's a couple of things I really want to sort of get more under the surface with for you. First of all, why would people choose to come to you? How do you differ from all the other, you know, lead generation, method teaching gurus out there? What is it that makes you different, David?
I wear really nice shirts.
That's true. I can find people. He always wears really nice shirts.
I do have a nice collection of really flowery shirts. Other than that, I think a couple of things. First of all, I've been doing this for long enough that it's not theoretical. So what I'm teaching you isn't just, I think this might work, let's try it all together. This is what's worked consistently for me, and also has worked for some of the done for you clients that we onboarded last year. So I think we've done this long enough to be able to say, yes, this works. This is something we can teach to people. This is going to be effective for you. But also, I think people are going to find what I'm teaching relatable, because I'm not coming in saying I'm going to teach you how to make a 7-figure business. I'm not going to teach you a method that keeps you fully booked all the time. This is very much grounded in reality. It does take effort. It does take work. It doesn't take as much as other efforts. I mean, I've tried doing the social media thing where you write, I don't know, 5 social media posts a week and comment on, oh, I can't keep up with that. I find it too much. This only takes me about an hour a week, and that's enough. But you do have to do it. You do have to be consistent. You do have to be disciplined. So it is a real process. It's not like you just push a button and things happen. So it's real. It's also very affordable. I've done courses like this where I've paid as much as £1,000, £1,500. This is broken down to a series of months. It's a monthly payment that most freelancers can afford. If you can't afford this, then I'd question how much you're charging your clients. You definitely need to increase your rates. We've kind of leveled it to the point that the idea is if you get one half decent client in your first year, this course will have paid for itself. I think that's fair and that's reasonable for everybody. It makes it accessible for everyone, and that was a big thing for us, because when we're doing the done for you service, one of the things we realised that the people that really need this, they can't afford necessarily to hire a virtual assistant and pay £500, £600, £700 a month. So this is a way of accessing the same thing, but at a fraction of the cost. A fraction of the cost you pay for that.
I'm going to add a little bit of social proof in here, David, as an added bonus that I didn't tell you. I feel inspired. I think having worked for quite a long time now in a number of different capacities, and using your services as well myself, there's a number of things that I can say would make you differ from the people that are out there. One of the big things for me is this, like you said, there's lots of these kind of high ticket, quite flashy, glossy methodologies out there. You pay a lot of money for, they've got big names behind them and all of that kind of stuff, and that's great, but there's always something that makes me a little bit skeptical about these things, because they sound so shiny that they're too good to be true, and they're not very grounded feeling to me, but also they feel kind of inauthentic, and it makes me feel like I'm going to have to do things that don't feel right to me. And I've tried a number of them and they don't land, because it's me trying to be someone I'm not, and it not feeling genuine and sincere. Now, I know that one of your biggest values is making those real, sincere and genuine connections with people, because you care, you deeply care. And that in itself was a huge selling point for me. When we first got to know each other and I understood the services that you provide, that was the biggest draw, that I felt instantly I could trust you, because you were super realistic, super sincere, and it was, there was nothing cheesy and, pretentious and, unrealistic about it. So that was a big deal for me. But also, this stuff does work. You go out and make those real connections with people, and I know, I know this works for you on a regular basis. I've seen it work for you. So the proof's in the pudding. As in terms of choosing your service and your company to work with, that the differentiator is you. Absolutely it is. And that's a big thing for a lot of freelancers who want to provide an authentic service to their clients as well.
Thank you. That's very kind. This was actually one of the things I was talking about with one of my clients. She's a director for one of the biggest tech companies in the world, and I actually told her about this program and told her about some of my anxieties related to putting myself in front of a camera, because I haven't put myself in front of a camera for a very long time. And when I was learning this kind of thing, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, I was working mainly with American clients, and I found that a lot of Americans are very, very good at being very bold and confident and talking a really, really good game. And that just isn't me. And she actually really encouraged me to just focus on being authentic and not trying to be something that I'm not. So that's why when I've been doing some of the videos you might have seen on LinkedIn, and even the launch video that's on the main website, it's not heavily scripted. It's not super polished. In most cases, what you're seeing is the first take. We haven't tried to do anything fancy with it. It's just me as a freelancer, got a really good method that works. I've refined it, and I can share it quite easily. It isn't going to take you haven't got to spend 2 hours studying every day for 6 months. It's literally, we're going to do a couple of 2-hour webinars just to get you off the ground. That will give you enough to get started. And then we're going to do, on average, about 1 new webinar a month, just to gradually increase your ability as you go through. So you're not going to have to study for months and months and months before you even get started with it. We're going to try and get you started more or less from day one.
So this is a hit the ground running.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Which is
even if you, we're doing the launch webinar on July the 17th. If you join after that, you'll get the recording of it. So you'll be able to watch that recording straight away and immediately start putting it into use that same day. Because it's not that hard to learn. It's just, to be effective, there's just a few little bits and pieces you need to know. And that's what we're going to show you in this program.
And like you said right up at the beginning, one of the biggest challenges freelancers have is time. And so what we don't want to be doing is not only finding, not being able to find time to get those leads and generate that business, but also having to then find a whole load of time to learn a whole load of stuff that it just feels completely unachievable. So that fits beautifully, doesn't it? Really.
Hopefully, yes, hopefully. Because all these, any marketing technique or sales technique, consistency is the key. And if it takes you too long, or if it's too tiring to do, you're not going to be able to be consistent with it. And this is the opposite of that. It is literally an hour a week.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're going to spend a bit more time actually on Zoom calls talking to clients, but that's the fun part. It's the actual connecting with people that literally you can do it in 15, 20 minutes a day.
It's leading the horses to water, right?
Exactly. Yes.
That. Final messages, next steps, calls to action. What would you like people to walk away with now?
Yeah. So if you want to know more, freelancefreedommethod.com, or you can look me up on LinkedIn and send me a message. If I get a connection request from a freelancer, I will always accept it. And if you've got any questions, you can just ask me, and I'll be happy to help you out with any questions that you've got.
Fantastic. Good stuff. This is exciting.
It is. I'm excited. You can't see it. It's all on the inside. It is very exciting.
I'm
actually really looking forward to getting that first webinar done, because at the time we're talking now, we're about 2 weeks away from doing that first webinar, which is about setting your prices. So I'm really looking forward to getting that first one under my belt and sharing that method with people. So that's going to be fun.
Yeah, that's a real practical first step, isn't it? And it's a good focus point. Really good. Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. David Congreave.
Thank you. Lovely chatting to you as always, Emma.
And you. And scene.